That dress costs more than your entire wardrobe, dear. The words sliced through the air like expensive perfume, sharp and suffocating. Sarah's fingers trembled against the silk fabric of the emerald evening gown she'd been admiring, her reflection in the boutique's crystal mirror suddenly blurring as tears threatened to form. Around her, the subtle rustle of designer clothing and soft clicks of expensive heels created a symphony of wealth that made her feel increasingly out of place in her simple flats and carefully pressed sundress. The exclusive boutique sparkled with chandelier light, its walls lined with couture pieces worth more than Sarah's entire semester of college tuition. Well-heeled women drifted between racks like exotic birds, their jewelry catching the light, their whispered conversations punctuated by barely concealed snickers as the sales consultant's words hung in the air. The invitation to her university's prestigious alumni gala felt like it was burning a hole in Sarah's bag, the opportunity of a lifetime now turning into a moment of public humiliation in this temple of high fashion. In the corner, partially hidden behind a display of evening wear, a figure in oversized sunglasses and a casual black ensemble paused in her browsing. The woman's head tilted slightly, her attention drawn to the unfolding scene like a compass finding true north. No one had noticed her yet. Anne Hathaway had learned long ago that sometimes the most powerful moment to be seen was after you'd watched enough to understand exactly what needed to change. I believe this section might be more appropriate for your budget. The sales consultant's manicured hand gestured dismissively toward a rack of clearance items tucked away in the darkest corner of the boutique. Her voice carried that special kind of cruelty, the sort that masquerades as helpfulness while wielding words like perfectly sharpened knives. Sarah felt the heat rising in her cheeks as nearby customers pretended to browse while obviously eavesdropping, their designer handbags clutched a little tighter as if poverty might be contagious. The emerald dress still whispered against her fingers, its price tag no longer just a number, but a judgment of her entire worth. The boutique's atmosphere had shifted, becoming thick with unspoken class warfare. A pair of socialites by the window exchanged knowing looks, their perfectly lined lips curving into smirks that had probably taken years of private school to perfect. Another woman clutched her shopping bags closer, as if Sarah's presence might somehow devalue her recent purchases. The sales consultant continued her performance, each word carefully selected to remind everyone present of the invisible but rigid social hierarchy. You see, dear, these pieces are investment pieces. They require a certain lifestyle to truly appreciate them. Perhaps something more casual would suit your current situation. The figure in the corner had removed her sunglasses now, folding them carefully into her simple black blazer. Anne Hathaway's eyes tracked every subtle movement of the scene. The way Sarah's shoulders curved inward as if trying to make herself smaller, the triumphant tilt of the consultant's chin, the silent approval of the watching crowd. She recognized every nuance of this performance, having lived both sides of it. From her early days of walking into auditions wearing paycheck-to-paycheck clothes to starring in The Devil Wears Prada, she had seen how fashion could be wielded as both armor and weapon. Her fingers drummed quietly against the rack of clothing beside her, a steady rhythm that matched the mounting tension in the room. The moment to step in was approaching, but timing, as in all great scenes, was everything. Sarah's fingers finally released the emerald dress, the fabric slipping away like water through her grasp. Each step toward the clearance rack echoed against the boutique's marble floors, a walk of shame choreographed by the satisfied smirk on the consultant's face. The invitation in her bag felt heavier with each step, her one chance to network at the alumni gala, to maybe find the internship that could change everything, slipping away with her dignity. A younger sales associate behind the counter had the decency to look uncomfortable, but quickly averted her eyes when her superior shot her a warning glance. The message was clear. In this temple of high fashion, maintaining the hierarchy was everyone's responsibility. "Oh, and perhaps we should discuss our jewelry policies as well," the consultant continued, her voice carrying across the showroom with theatrical concern. "Some of our clients have expressed anxiety about trying on pieces after certain customers." The implications hung in the air like poison gas, choking the space with unspoken accusations. The socialites by the window didn't even bother hiding their amusement now, one of them deliberately adjusting her diamond bracelet in a way that caught the light and Sarah's attention. Another customer had taken out her phone, no doubt already composing a deliciously malicious social media post about maintaining standards in luxury retail. The brutal choreography of public humiliation was reaching its crescendo, each participant playing their role in reinforcing who belonged and who didn't. The soft click of heels against marble broke the rhythm of the scene. Every head turned as Anne Hathaway stepped into the center of the showroom, her presence commanding attention not through volume, but through the quiet confidence that Hollywood could never quite teach, the kind that came from knowing exactly who you are. "That emerald dress," she said, her voice carrying the same warmth that had made her America's sweetheart, "would look absolutely stunning on you." She moved past the frozen consultant, lifting the dress from its rack with the casual elegance of someone who had handled costumes worth small fortunes. The cut would be perfect for an alumni gala. The silence in the boutique turned sharp enough to cut, as everyone realized she must have overheard everything. "You know," she continued, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth, "I wore something similar to my first important industry event, back when plenty of people thought I didn't belong either." The consultant's perfectly maintained facade cracked for just a moment, her eyes darting between Anne and Sarah like a tennis match where the rules had suddenly changed. "Ms. Hathaway, I was just explaining to this customer about our more suitable options." Anne held up a hand, the gesture so graceful it made the interruption feel like a scene from a film. "I heard exactly what you were explaining," she said, still holding the emerald dress. "You were explaining everything that's wrong with the fashion industry and honestly, everything I fought against in The Devil Wears Prada." She turned to Sarah, whose eyes had grown wide with disbelief. "Would you mind if I helped you try this on? I have some excellent styling tips for alumni events. They can be so intimidating when you're just starting out." The boutique had transformed into a theater, every witness frozen in their places, as Anne Hathaway, Oscar winner, fashion icon, and apparently guardian angel, began walking Sarah through the finer points of evening wear. "See how this cut emphasizes confidence rather than just status," she explained, her voice carrying just enough to ensure everyone could hear. "That's what these events are really about, not the price tag, but how you carry yourself." The consultant hovered nearby, her previously dominant presence now deflated, while the socialites who had been smirking earlier suddenly found their phones fascinating. Anne continued her masterclass in both style and dignity, each word carefully chosen to dismantle the artificial barriers that had been erected. "I remember my first major industry event. This incredible designer told me something I never forgot. Fashion is meant to lift people up, not push them down." "But let me tell you the real secret," Anne said, adjusting the dress's drape as Sarah stood before the mirror, transformation visible not just in her reflection, but in her gradually straightening spine. "True elegance? It's not about the label or the price tag, it's about recognizing the beauty in yourself and others." She turned to face the boutique's staff and customers, her smile warm, but her eyes carrying a weight that had nothing to do with Hollywood glamour. "And the most elegant people I've known have always been the ones who make others feel beautiful too." The consultant's face had turned the exact shade of the season's most expensive lipstick, while several customers who had been recording the scene on their phones slowly lowered them, their expressions shifting from malicious entertainment to something approaching shame. Sarah stood at the register, her hand steady now, as she prepared to purchase the emerald dress. Anne had insisted on only one thing, that Sarah use her own savings to buy it. "Because you earned this," she'd whispered, helping Sarah with the final adjustments. "And every time you wear it, you'll remember that." The consultant processed the transaction in silence, her earlier condescension replaced by a stilted politeness that felt like its own kind of victory. Around the boutique, phones had finally disappeared into expensive handbags, their owners perhaps realizing that going viral for cruelty wasn't the fashion statement they wanted to make. The story spread through social media anyway, but not through mocking videos of a girl being humiliated. Instead, it came from the young sales associate who had watched everything unfold. Her TikTok about Anne Hathaway's masterclass in elegance went viral for all the right reasons, spawning thousands of comments about similar experiences and creating a movement about redefining fashion's true purpose. Major fashion magazines picked up the story, leading to discussions about accessibility, elitism, and the responsibility of luxury brands. The emerald dress itself became a symbol, with fan art depicting it appearing across social platforms, always accompanied by quotes about true elegance and worth. 3 months later, Sarah wore the dress to the alumni gala. As she walked into the event, her confidence wasn't just about the designer label, it came from knowing her own worth. She had framed the receipt from that day, not for the price tag, but for the note Anne had written on it. Elegance is not about being noticed, it's about being remembered. The boutique, facing public pressure, eventually announced a scholarship program for fashion students from underprivileged backgrounds. And somewhere in Hollywood, Anne Hathaway smiled as she read about it, knowing that sometimes the most important roles we play are the ones that change more than just a scene. They change the whole story.